Hey everybody, Perry with Premier Marishine in New York. This is going to be like a little two-part video. So you're going to see me switch from wheels like this over to a super single floater wheel here in about 4 minutes or so. So bear with me, but there is a surprising number of people in the trucking industry, in the detailing industry, who do not realize that there are two main brands of wheels really that are on trucks that we find. There's a whole bunch of different brands. American Force makes them, TRP makes them, North Star makes them, but the two primary brands are Alcoa's and Accurides. Now with Alcoa, I'm using this as an example because this is what's in my shop at the moment. These are Alcoa wheels. These are all getting done on the drive side. We're turning insides to outsides for trailers. But the four main types of Alcoa wheels are classified by finish. So you have your 22.5s and your 24.5s typically. Then you have your pickup wheels like 19s. Stuff like that for rollbacks and everything, or Dodge pickup trucks. But you have finishes, which are normally marked by a sticker. Sometimes the sticker is not there, but you can still kind of figure out what it is. When you take it to get it polished, what's sitting on the sticker doesn't matter, because by the time it's done getting polished, it's going to be a finish that Alcoa can never dream of turning out. So this is a level 1. This is the second step up. So first step is a brushed finish. I personally have never seen a brushed finished wheel unless it is the inside. Like if this wheel were to come new and you order the steer side as a level 1 polish, the inside might be brush finished, but other than that, I haven't actually seen like an outside brushed finished wheel. But what you see with the level 1, and I'm going to go in depth in the second part of this video with this, but you see these little striations that are going this way? Those are called mill marks, and like I said, I'll explain that later in the next video. Those mill marks come out when you're sanding. So that's a level 1 finish, and they just polish over top of those. Those mill marks create a lot of distortion in the polish job. The next step up is called a mirror finish. On the sticker, it'll say mirror finish. That doesn't quite have as many striations. They put a little bit more effort into polishing the wheels. They look significantly better than the level 1s and kind of even more than the Durabrites. But you still have some mill marks that need to be sanded out. So the next step up is going to be Durabrite. That not only has mill marks, but it has a protective coating on it. And what I tell customers up here is, if you want something on a truck that you're going to run in the wintertime that's going to look good for a while, go ahead and get the Durabrites. They're easier to keep clean. You can run polished in the winter. Yes, the salt will tear them up, but it takes longer to tear up the Durabrite coating than it does to tear up a raw polished wheel. So you get the Durabrite, you pay $300 or something like that, $350, somewhere around there, I guess, for a Durabrite. You run that wheel up here. I'm usually seeing them go a good 5 winters, sometimes 6 if somebody's taking care of them real good. And when that coating starts flaking or the pitting is causing oxidation underneath that coating, you bring them to me and I strip that coating off, which is not that hard to do on a Durabrite. The AccuShields for Accuride are a little bit of a different story, but Durabrites are pretty simple to strip. And then you run them as a polished summer wheel that has a very high amount of luster to it. It has high clarity, and you run it in the summertime. Then you get another set of Durabrights that you throw your winter tires on, and you run another set of Durabrights in the winter. And then you've got wheels that are on a rotation, you've got tires that are on a rotation, and you constantly have nice looking equipment that way, and it's easier to maintain. So the summer wheels, when you pull them off in the fall and put your winter Durabrights back on, you bring me the summer wheels. One, I don't have to try to rush to get everything done. If I'm slammed, I can put them in, put them against my wall. I can work on them when I have some free time, because I know you're not going to be putting them back on the truck until April in this area. But it also gives you, the ability to get polish jobs a little bit cheaper, because at that point we're maintaining something that hasn't been trashed by New York salt and acid and everything else. So when I take a level 1, which, like I said towards the beginning, you have those striations in it, and you can actually see it from here too. You take the level 1 and you sand it, you end up with something like this, where the only striations that you're seeing now are coming from buff lines, just buff trails. But outside of that, there's nothing aside, from the buff trails that's really distorting the clarity of the wheel. So if you hang on, I think the next video segment's like 7 minutes long. Bear with me. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to why I sand everything that I touch in my shop. I'm not saying that anybody else is doing it wrong. I'm not saying that anybody else is necessarily cutting corners. I'm just going to explain to the masses that are following why, if somebody wants to bring me wheels and they say, oh, they're not that bad, they can just be hit with a buff, they don't need to be sanded, whatever their excuse may be for wanting to not pay my full price for wheel polishing, this is going to explain my reasoning why I do things the way I do here. So bear with me. We're going to roll into the next segment with the super single, and hopefully that will kind of help explain some things. For the interest of time today, I'm going to make this one kind of short. I just wanted to show an example of why I sand pretty much everything that I polish. I acid wash, sand it. This one has not been acid washed yet, but what I wanted to show you is the difference in clarity between something that's been sanded and something that hasn't been, and explain to maybe some of my customers who are gonna start following the page, or other polishers who are starting off, or whoever, that this is the reason why I do things the way I do in my shop. I've kind of created a little bit of quality associated with my name, so I don't like to take shortcuts. I like to do things a certain way consistently all the time, because if I have a customer that comes to me and wants wheels polished, for instance, but they don't necessarily want to pay for sanding, what you end up with, if the wheels have never been sanded and polished before, is you have these lines right in here. Those are called mill marks, and they're from the process used to make the wheel. So it's basically like a lathe that runs across the surface and cuts away the material, and you end up with those lines in the finish. Well, if I do not sand and I end up polishing over top of that and trying to cut it out the best I can, this is what you end up with. So you end up with a bunch of wavy looking lines in the surface that are actually distorting your reflection. And there is good reflection in this wheel, and I'm sure that somewhere somebody would be more than happy with just even seeing this as their first cut. But I don't like that. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these wheels, and to get rid of those mill marks the fastest way possible, I use 320 grit on a rotary, DeWalt Inox actually, right there. 5-inch pads, and I start sanding this off. It gets it all nice and smooth. Then what I personally do is I go 600 rotary, and then I go 800 rotary, and then I go over everything real quick with 800 on a DA. And it makes it a little bit easier for me to cut out because I'm not running 6,000 RPM machines like other people are. So for me to cut out 800 rotary marks is a little bit harder. It's possible, but it takes me a little bit longer. So that's the process that I use to get rid of all of these little ripples. And once you get rid of the ripples, you end up with a nice clean reflection in your surface. What you're seeing there is buff trails and just little lines from where I wiped off the final layer of sealant, but you can see that the clarity is a lot deeper. I mean, you can see the lift plain as day, and that lift is probably 30 feet away, maybe, roughly. And you can see it like you're looking at it with the naked eye. So what happens is a customer comes and they want a wheel done like that one, and then everybody is already used to seeing this for my final product. And what happens is somebody comes and they decide that they don't want to pay for a little bit of sanding work to be done, and all of a sudden that work is going down the road and people are seeing it, and it's not as clear as the other work that I've done. And now all of a sudden I have people wondering what the quality of my work actually is. And it's happened on 2 separate occasions already where people have seen stuff like this roll out, and they have been less than impressed with it. And it's actually cost me business, and it wasn't any fault of my own. It was just because somebody didn't want to pay for a little bit of sandpaper or thought that their wheels didn't need it, so they couldn't justify the price. And so that's my conscious decision to no longer offer not sanding as an option. At the end of the day, my reputation as a polisher is more important than a customer wanting to cheap out on a polish job, even though they may be okay with that. At a truck stop, when somebody sees that at a fuel island, that right there, you see that at a fuel island, and you ask the person where they got their work done, I don't want my name to come out. Because at the end of the day, that is not a true reflection of the quality of work that I do. But that isn't explained at a fuel island when somebody is asking. So that is my decision. That is why I do it. I hit this real quick just to do a demo and be able to show people what I'm talking about. So maybe this will shed a little bit of light. It doesn't take that long, really, to sand stuff like this out. This wheel is not pitted or anything. It's nice and smooth, as you can see. It just doesn't have the clarity because it's been acid washed. So I'm gonna acid wash this, and hopefully here in about an hour or so, it'll look like that one does over there, nice and shiny. And I'll have a happy customer on my hands who has no problem giving me a recommendation to anybody else, and I have no problem with that, because that over there is the quality of work that I know I'm turning out, and my customer knows that I'm turning out.